Right, thanking and praising God once again, this time for rest. Let's call this chapter, Amos chapter 8, off days, because it is going to be a theme that at least is catchy in my mind, even if that term is not literally going to come up in the chapter. The concept, it definitely is, even if I stretch its application. And in this chapter, once again, I want to use a crude summary, hoping not to dishonor the structure of the chapter or the integrity of the summary I'm offering, but to try to sum it up without getting bogged down in what, once again, seems to be a very preachable passage with a lot of relevant points. But beginning in verses 1 through 3, he's going to ask Amos, what do you see? To which Amos is going to reply, a basket of summer fruit, which is going to lead to the Lord saying the end has come, which does not seem to make sense in English, but the ESV carries a footnote that says the term for summer fruit in Hebrew sounds a lot like the end. Therefore, the metaphor or the parallel or illustration that he gives to Amos, introducing the fact that he is describing once again the way that things are going to come to an end for Israel, the northern 10 tribes, at which point that whole concept of off days kicks in for me at about verse 4, where verses 4 through 6 are going to describe the way in which this end is coming to Israel because of, once again, the way they are mistreating those who really are not capable of defending themselves against the powerful in Israel. Describing the way that they are so in the habit of oppressing the defenseless that they don't even want off days when God is giving them Sabbaths off or festivals like new moons. They're like, when can we get this over so we can get back to doing dirt? My paraphrase of verses 4 through 6. As God in turn is going to return to a common theme just from a different perspective in the prophecies of Amos. With the measure we use, he will measure it back to us. This time saying, because they won't take any days off from hammering those who have basically no defense against them, he is not going to take any days off for or from remembering the wrongs that they have done. Specifically saying in verse 7, the Lord has sworn by the pride of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their deeds. Carrying that forward through verse 8. In verses 9 through 12, is it? 9 through 10. Once again, he's going to bring up what brought to mind for me that concept of off days by saying he is going to darken the days around noon, something that's easy for us to relate to the further north you move in the United States, where our sunlight gets much shorter in the winter months. Here, it's even shorter than what we can expect here. Understanding that just this past Sunday, I talked to a brother who talked about the way in which the shorter days during this time of year can really get to him. God is saying he's cutting off sunlight at about noon. Let me slow down, as I always say. He's cutting off sunlight at about noon, which, if you think it's not going to affect you, he's definitely telling them it's something that is going to darken the days in a way that's going to affect them. Because even if the darkness, the physical darkness, does not affect them, he's going to pick up that concept of off days again, at least for me, in verses 11 through 13, 11 and 12, actually, where he is going to say there's going to become another type of darkness that's going to settle in, where those who previously seemed disinterested in the word of the Lord are going to come into a period where they're actually going to want to hear what God has to say, quite possibly because of the way they're going to want a way out of the difficult times that he has brought them into, but they are no longer going to be able to find the word of the Lord, saying that there will be no off days from that season during which they will seek answers and not find them, quite possibly pointing forward to that 400 years of silence between the two testaments, what we call the Old Testament and the New Testament, even though it does not have to be that period of time because he is just talking to Israel. It might simply be a period of time for Israel that's likened into that silencing of the word of the Lord in what we would call the intertestamental period, as this chapter at least closes in verses 13 and 14 with basically describing that period of deprivation or darkness in the terms of thirst. Verse 13 specifically saying, in that day the lovely virgins and the young men shall faint for thirst, which could be a physical thirst, but it could be hungering and thirsting for righteousness, similar to what we see Jesus talking about in the Beatitudes, saying, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And even though that's not literally what he's saying here, it is possible that those who had really little to no need for the Lord, apparently during their days of prosperity, are now being brought to a period of time where, if for no other reason, because their physical deprivation is so great, they realize that, oh, wait a minute, those prophets weren't simply giving us words from the Lord regarding our character. In difficult times, they were giving us words of guidance as to how we can recover. But now, he seems to be describing a time when they will find neither words of guidance for their character nor words of guidance for improving their difficult condition, leaving those who might have once sought to oppress their brethren without so much as a day off to now enter into their own brand of suffering that quite possibly lacked any days off.